Hi y'all, today I'm going to show you a little bit about making needle felted magnolia blooms. This is the kit here and it has everything that you need. When you open it up, you're going to see the instructions. You will have white wool for your petals, yellow wool which will be in the center of your flower, finger guards for protecting your fingers, a foam mat with 2 extra needles, and a needle felting handle with a needle. So the first thing we're going to do is take our extra needles out of our mat and we're just going to put these to the side. Those are there so that if your needle breaks, you can replace them. And then we're going to take our needle from our handle, we're going to pull it out, flip the needle, and put it back in. And you want to make sure this is in firmly so the needle doesn't start sliding into your handle. If that does happen, just take it out, push the needle back up where it's supposed to be, and push it in again. So these are our instructions. If you don't want to follow the tutorial, you can use these to follow along with to make your flowers. It'll walk you through how to make the petals and how to put them together. And then on this back page, it gives you an approximate idea of the size that you're going to want your petals to be. So when I do this tutorial, I'm not going to do all the petals because they're all made the same way and it would take a while. So what I'm going to do is do 2 of the petals, a large one and a smaller one. And then I'm going to skip to putting the magnolia together so that you can see how to do that. And you can just pause the video when it gets to that point where you need to do the other petals. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off a hunk of wool. I'm just going to kind of put that to the side. That will be used for the center, and it'll also be used if I need some extra wool on some of the petals if I find that they have a little less than I want. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off the wool, and when you do this, you want to hold this not firmly because it's hard to pull apart, but just hold it lightly, and you're just going to pull off about 9 chunks like this, and that is just to make sure that you have enough wool to do all your petals. If you can't do all 9, then you might need to make some of them a little smaller. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so that gives me 9, and I have a little extra, so I'm going to add that to my extra pile. So now I'm going to take one of these, and what we're going to do is we're going to want to make a petal that's about this size. So you can see if I lay this down, it's a little bigger than that, which is good. As we needle felt it, it will tighten it up and we'll create the ends. So what you want to do is wear your finger guards. They're going to protect your fingers from accidentally being poked with the needle. You wear them on the thumb and finger of the hand that you're using to hold your project. I like these 2 fingers, but if you find you're holding it like this, switch this one over to that finger to protect it. So when we're needle felting, we're just going to do nice, light, even pokes with the needle. You want to make sure your needle goes in and out straight. It can go in and out of an angle, but you always want to go in and out at the same direction. If you start bending it, you're likely to break your needle. You also don't want to go too deep with your needle. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the mat. You can see that I'm just kind of ticking the surface of the mat. And what I like to do first is I just like to kind of create the outline of the petal that I'm making. After a little while, I'm going to take it and I'm going to flip it and work from the other side. And you just want to make sure you're coming at it from all different angles and that you're needle felting the whole area. Now, as it starts to knit together, you can kind of come from the edge and you can kind of tuck it in and hold it down. It's the same over here. And I'm still trying to go in and out at the same direction with my needle. I'm just doing it at a bit of an angle. Don't mind that noise in the background. I have a foster kitten. She's about 7 weeks old and very playful. So I'm going to come in from the other side a little bit. I'm just kind of trying to tuck the edges in. All right, you can see how it's starting to knit together. This is going to take a while to get it to the point that where I want it. But I am noticing that it's a little thin through the middle here. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of that extra wool that I pulled to the side. And I'm going to just add it into the middle. And then keep needle felting it. You can see I ended up with a rather large pile of extra wool. And I'm not going to need that much extra. So I'll just add it into some of these petals that are a little bit smaller than I wanted them to be. So right now, if I take this and I'm looking, it's a little bit bigger than what I want it to be. It's a little bigger than that petal. So I'm going to keep working at it. It needs to be needle felted more too, but you can see from the guide that it has quite a way to go. One thing I like to do is I like to hold it between my fingers and just gently tuck in the edges. If you're not comfortable with that, you can also just do it straight on your mat, and you just go in at an angle. And you can gently gather up the wool and then needle felt that in. Again, just remember when you're doing this that you go in and out at the same angle. Also, it takes a while to needle felt it up to the degree that you want. So take your time. That's why I'm not going to do all of the petals for this tutorial. I usually work my way completely through the project. But you'd be watching me make petals after petals after petals for an hour and a half. And that can get a little boring. So once you see me make the first ones, they're all the same after that. So the instructions give you 6 larger petals about this size and then 3 smaller petals. My petals are never the exact same size, and usually I end up with 3 large, 3 medium, and 3 small. So I just use the large size on the bottom and then the medium and then the small, which looks good as well. Needle felting's not fast. Everything with it takes its time. And you just slowly work on shaping what you're working it on. The direction that you push your needle is the direction that you are pushing your wool fibers. So by coming around the edge like this and pushing from the edge into the center, I'm pushing all my fibers to the center, which helps me create the shape of the petals that I want. And just make sure you're flipping it so that you work both sides. As you needle felt through, you'll have lots of little pieces that go through into the pad. That's why you don't want to needle felt it too deep, because you're just pushing the wool way down. So that's why you want to keep moving it back and forth so that it kind of it evenly needle felts the whole thing. Again, going from an angle's fine. Just make sure you're going in and out the same way. How we're looking. So we're looking pretty good. approximately the size of that, maybe a little longer, but it fits nicely in there, and this can overlap on the bottom. So I'm going to say that this guy's done for right now. I can always come back and I can always needle felt it a little bit more. Maybe if I need to even it up with some other petals, I can make it a little smaller. Or if I end up with some bigger ones, I can always add just a little bit more wool to it. So I'm going to leave this one mostly finished for now while I work on another one. So the next one I'm going to do is going to be a little smaller. So I'm going to take a little less wool. I'm actually going to break this up a little bit by just pulling it the same way we did before. And I'm just going to pull it a couple times to try to make it smaller so it's not as long. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with this one, but I'm going to bunch it up a little bit more so that it's not as wide. And again, I always like to start kind of sketching out my center shape. Sometimes you will get a bit of debris in here. A little piece of wheat or some sort of grass is stuck in with the wool. I just pull those out when that happens. I don't find it much in this wool, but it does happen occasionally. Alright, and as I go, I'm just going to kind of push my edges in to keep that petal form. Now, one side is going to be the edge of the petal, and then the other side is going to be where the petals connect together in the interior. So if only one end of your petal is shaped like this and the other is kind of rough or loose, that's fine, because we're going to use this to connect it together. So you won't really notice that rougher side. So if your petal, you know, is starting to look like this, it's not complete petal shape on one side, that's not a problem. But you can also just work at pushing it in to create that definition and create that shape. So you can see how we're getting it to look more and more like a petal as we go. Going to keep flipping it so we can work from all different angles. I'm kind of using the needle to kind of roll up my edges, which is fine, but you want to make sure you're not prying it with the bottom because that's likely to break your needle. But if you kind of take it on the side and just use it to push up a little bit and then hold it with your finger guard, it can help you smooth out those edges. The more that you needle felt this magnolia leaf, the smoother it's going to get and the firmer it's going to get. I mean, it's never going to be hard because it is wool, but the more you keep working at it, the more it needle felts and the nicer it ends up looking. So I just decided that this one was too thin in the middle too. I had taken out too much of the wool when I did that, so I'm just adding a little bit more in. But that's why we have all that extra. We know we have enough to make our 9 petals because we put that to the side. And we still have extra if we find that some of them need to be bigger or thicker. If you do intend to needle felt more after this kit, they make needle holders that can hold several needles. They have one that can hold 3 or even 7. The one that can hold 2 or 3 is nice for flatter projects like this because you can needle felt it with 2 to 3 needles at the same time, and it just makes the process go a little faster. Just make sure when you do this that you keep your other fingers out of the way. You don't want to accidentally get yourself with the needle. And you can see that this is starting to form into my petal as well. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bigger than what I have here, but I still have a little bit of a ways to go to really get it shaped up. And at this stage, the more I needle felt it, the smaller it's going to become because the wool's really starting to felt up. Kind of feels like it's taking forever with needle felting, and you're working, and it's not really changing. And then all of a sudden, it starts to come together, which I guess it's like that in a lot of art forms. All right, so here we have 2 petals, one big and one little, and I am going to leave them there for right now. You will want to do 2 more of the small ones, so you have 3 small, and you'll want to do 5 more of the large ones, so you have 5 large. And then we're going to want to do the middle of our magnolia. So you're going to take a little bit of white, you're going to take a little bit of the yellow. We're just going to mix them together. We're mixing them together the same way that we pulled them apart in the first place. We're just kind of pulling it apart a couple times. The yellow is a carded wool already. It's a different type of wool, so it comes apart very easily. But you want it to be a little bit of a not so uniform look, so that it looks natural. You're going to take this and you're going to roll it up into a little cylinder, just like that. Doesn't have to be that neat, don't worry about that at first. And then the same thing, we're just going to tack in our sides and our top. Coming on the other side. You can see using these 2 different types of wool, the white leaves a little bit of wispiness in the yellow. And I like the look of the 2 different kinds. And we just want these to be securely felted together, but it does not need to be hard, and it does not need to be well felted. If you think it's too small, you can just mix up some more of your wool and you can add it to it and just go over the top. So if I wanted some more, I would just take some more of the yellow and white and just mix it together again. And then I'm just going to roll it over the top. With my finger gloves, I find it's easier to mix the wool when I don't have the gloves on my finger. I'm just working at this from all the different angles. I don't know if you can hear Wednesday playing in the background, but she's got my cord, and she's having a blast. I'll pull her up if I can get her to do a little cameo at the end if she's here. All right, so this is going to be the inside. So now we're going to put our magnolia together. So I'm going to take 3 of my petals. You can see one side I finished off more and one side a little less. And this side that I finished off less, I'm just going to attach them together. And you want them to be pretty well attached. So go over this area several times, flip it upside down, get it from the bottom. And then we're going to lay our next 3 large petals on top. Just like that. And then the same thing, we're going to needle felt them together. And remember, I sped up that process to make those petals. I will probably end up needle felting them a little bit more before I bring them to this stage. But I didn't want to take forever doing the same petal over and over again. So take your time when you're doing your petals. Make sure you like the shape, that you like how they look before you attach them together. And then I'm going to take my 3 smaller and I'm going to go over the top one more time. And I'm just going to make sure that I get this really secure. Alright, so it's starting to come together. So you can see how they're attached. And then I'm going to take my centerpiece. And I'm going to go at it from an angle all the way around on the edges. And I'm needle felting that right onto my center. I want to make sure that's securely in place. This is also a good time to kind of touch it up. Since it's attached at the bottom, it makes it even easier to make sure it's well needle felted. Alright, so what you're going to do at this point is you're going to close up your 3 middle ones around it. And you're just going to try to get in here and needle felt them around to the base of that yellow piece. This is just causing them to stand up a little bit. So now you're going to wrap your second row. So you'll have 6 of them wrapped around the yellow piece. And again, we're just going to needle felt around the edges. Just slowly attaching it. This does not have to be perfect. We're just trying to close it up a little bit. And then we're going to take the rest of them and we're going to turn it into a closed magnolia bloom like that. And we're going to turn it on its side and we're going to go all the way around. I'm going to go about 1/2 inch up to right about where the edge of your petals touch each other. You're just working around this area. This is making sure all the layers are firmly felted together, and it's also felting it up the sides a little bit so that your flower petals stand a little bit upright and have a cut look to them. And one thing I have done is I've taken watercolors and I've painted the inside of the petals just lightly with a really watered down watercolor. And then I wet it and I paint the insides, and then I close it up with a rubber band like this. And then when I open it up, you can see the color that's developed on the inside of the flower, which is nice. But now I'm just going to open this up a little bit. And there you go. There's your magnolia bloom. At this point, you can touch it up. If you need to get the inside a little bit, if you have some flyaways, you can touch it up a little bit more. But there you go. Let me know what you think.